The boy carelessly tossed his plane into a cave, but when he ran over to grab it, he found the ground littered with dead locusts. Even more terrifying, when he looked up, he saw the cave swarming with locusts, every single one of them locked onto him with a dead stare. The boy spun around and bolted, but the locust swarm chased after him relentlessly. Hearing her son's screams from far off, his mother rushed over to see what was happening. Before she could even speak, 860 locusts had already swept in like a black tide. Panicking, she shoved the boy into the car first thing. But the father, standing off to the side, wasn't so lucky. In the blink of an eye, the swarm knocked him to the ground. The mother tried to charge in and save him, but she'd barely taken a few steps before the locusts devoured her completely. Watching both his parents die right in front of him, the boy pounded on the car window, completely broken. And then, the swarm locked onto him next, slamming into the car like crazy. In a panic, the boy started the engine, desperate to escape this hell. But there were just too many locusts, and the windshield was smeared over in seconds. Unable to see the road at all, the car slammed straight into a big tree. The boy passed out cold, slumped over the driver's seat. About 3 minutes later, an officer on patrol happened to pass by and noticed the car wrapped around the tree trunk. The swarm had vanished without a trace by now, but the entire car was caked in locust remains, mixed with a thick, mysterious slime. The officer wiped the slime away and discovered an unconscious little boy lying inside. He didn't waste a second. He scooped the kid up, carried him to his patrol car, and got ready to rush him to the hospital. But before he could even pull away, the locusts came swarming back, blotting out the sky. Seeing the black wave of bugs coming straight for him, the officer floored it and fled in terror. But the locusts had caught the scent of flesh and wouldn't let go. Only when the speedometer hit 120 did the two of them finally shake the swarm and survive. He sped the boy to the hospital right away. The kid pulled through, but the trauma left a deep scar. Meanwhile, somewhere else, two young guys were tearing down the road on a motorcycle. The engine's piercing roar stirred a sleeping swarm of locusts. Just as they were soaking in the thrill of the ride, an overwhelming wave of bugs came crashing down on them. They didn't even get the chance to cry for help before they were devoured whole. One bloody incident after another finally put the police on high alert. They scrambled a special ops team and decided to strike the cave directly and wipe out the locusts for good. When the team reached the cave entrance, a sickening rotten stench hit them in the face. Every one of them was terrified, but they had no choice. They gritted their teeth and pushed deeper inside. Staring at the mountain of locust remains piled on the ground, everyone froze. These were no ordinary locusts. They were a swarm of mutated giant bat-like monsters. And what made their skin crawl even more were the countless eggs hanging in dense layers all over the cave walls. If those eggs ever hatched all at once, all of humanity would be facing extinction. There was no time to think. The officers grabbed insecticide and sprayed like mad. But these mutant creatures were already immune to everything. Ordinary chemicals did nothing. With the swarm now fully enraged, the officers fell back on their last resort. They raised flamethrowers, trying to burn the eggs to ash, but they couldn't burn them faster than the eggs could hatch, and by the time they realized it, it was already too late. In an instant, the swarm surrounded the entire team. Within minutes, every member was devoured, but that little bit of flesh was nowhere near enough to satisfy them. Next, the swarm poured toward a nearby amusement park, and crowds of visitors were attacked all at once. Screams rang out everywhere as the place descended into chaos. To wipe out these mutant monsters as soon as possible, a scientist named Mary suggested using a newly developed biochemical virus, but the virus contained powerful radioactive components. Once released, the entire town would be reduced to scorched earth, and even the groundwater would be badly contaminated. Still, there was no safer option, so they had to bet everything on it. They set up live cattle as bait in an open field to lure the swarm in. Once all the locusts had gathered, a helicopter would dump the virus on them from above. But everyone underestimated just how clever these locusts were. The moment the pilot hit the release button, the swarm launched a ferocious attack. They surged toward the helicopter like a flood, and before anyone could react, the aircraft and its crew were torn to pieces. With a deafening blast, the helicopter went up in flames in seconds. Clearly, this swarm had been evolving non-stop. Not only were they completely immune to every kind of toxin, their intelligence had reached a shocking level too. Subduing them would be anything but easy. With no other choice, the military rolled in a column of armored tanks. But the cunning swarm had already quietly looped around to the other side, slaughtering civilians without restraint. Seeing that a head-on fight wouldn't work, Mary had a flash of inspiration and came up with a new plan. She intended to lure the locusts into a sealed space, then take them all out at once with explosives. Luckily, this time things went smoothly. The pilot successfully drew the swarm into a massive enclosed warehouse. As the heavy gate came crashing down, every last locust was trapped inside. All that was left was to light the explosives and finish them all off. But here was the problem. These high IQ locusts had actually chewed through the fuse. Just as everyone was at a loss, a mysterious figure walked straight into the warehouse. It turned out these locusts were the accidental result of his own research. To make up for the catastrophe he'd caused, he decided to pay with his own life and trigger the nuclear detonator by hand. As the countdown hit 0, the mutant locusts were wiped out completely. And with that, the crisis was finally over, and the town returned to its old, peaceful self.